I am Bharat Gupt. Today I am going to answer some questions for you.
Why does India have a regressive caste system?
It is now called the caste system, was called the Varna Ashram or the Varna Vyavastha, and it was Varna and Jati. Basically, it was an economic order. And an economic order, it meant that there were four large divisions: Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. And the hierarchy was fixed in order the proximity they had to the system of knowledge. So those who had higher knowledge and those who had better understanding of creative knowledge, they were considered higher. But primarily, it was an economic system, and people were in professions, and it was a very cooperative system. I will ask a question to all the critics that India has been an extremely prosperous society for thousands of years. Now, if this was an oppressive system, if this was a system where people were all the time crushed, then how could we have a prosperous society? How could we have a great society, a creative society? How could we have those great arts and temples and all the achievements in the field of language and literature? So it was an economic order, but in the last 300-400 years, it was totally smashed as an economic order, and it continued only as a vestige of the older classification. And now we have to understand that India is undergoing a new caste order. Filmmakers are sending their children to make films, and judges are sending their children for professions, and that way, you see. So, society is changing, and we have to follow the new systems that are evolving.
Spirituality has become a business. Who is a genuine sadhu?
Every profession has some norms, and every profession requires that people who deserve to practice that profession should do it. Now, you have scoundrels among lawyers today, you have judges who take bribes, you have politicians who commit murders, but that does not mean that we should not have judges and politicians, etc. So the same applies to sannyasis. If there is a lack of education, if people are not taught what is dharma, if people are not given an education, then we'll have all kinds of unwanted people becoming sadhus. So the problem has nothing to do with the ideal of who is a sadhu. A sadhu meant somebody who becomes a sannyasi in the fourth ashram. So after you have done your brahmacharya, that is your period of education, after you have been a grihastha, that is, you have contributed to society, raised children, given able citizens, then you meditate, you understand, and finally, when you become capable of traveling and giving up each and everything, then you become a sannyasi or a sadhu. Now, this is the ideal, but every society practices the ideal according to the level of education which are prevalent. So it's not as if we are very special in having bad sannyasis. The world is full of most corrupt clergy, Christian clergy, most corrupt Muslim clergy. So why flagellate ourselves? Educate ourselves.
Women are given secondary status in the Indian society. Do we have gender equality?
You see, the question of equality and gender equality today has been defined according to certain Western economies. It simply means that if a man can go to office, a woman should also go to office. Now, all this is post industrial. Before the Industrial Revolution, nobody in Europe or America wanted his wife to go to office. So, women were working at home and they were contributing to the economy and they were part of the hierarchy and they also had a say in things. Now, in ancient India, the same was true, and women were not uneducated. If you read some of the older texts, like the Kamastura, that makes it very clear that every woman should continue her education after she gets married. And that means all kinds of education. The 64 arts included a very big variety of what we call today higher education. Only that they didn't go out to a gurukul, but they had their education at home. So women were highly educated. Of course, all women can't be equally educated. So we have to understand what is the true history about gender equality in India.
Why has dowry system always existed in India?
This is one of the biggest pieces of misinformation. Do you know that there is no word for dowry in Sanskrit? There is a word called yautuk. Yautuk means the property of the woman which she has collected, small gifts and big gifts. And then there is stridhan, which means all the precious things that have been given to her by her father, relatives, etc. So, according to all the practices that are in record, what was incumbent was that she is given in marriage a bed, a little bit of jewelry, which would always be part of her personal property. And husband or father-in-law would have no right to it. So this was the position, and the stridhan or her property would stay with her all her life, and it would be given to her daughter or daughter-in-law, not to a man. So dowry, as a matter of fact, is a much later development in India. We don't know about it, about the history, and we just flagellate ourselves and we say that, look, it is a very ancient Hindu custom. You don't find any mention of it in the Smritis at all. The Smritis are not asking that a woman should be given this much and this much dowry. So, this is something we have to closely study. And
Giving your daughter away as if she was a commodity. Why do we do Kanyadan at a Hindu wedding?
whole controversy about Kanyadan, this has been created very recently by modern feminists. And that is because they don't understand at all. They're totally ignorant of the meaning of the word dan. In all Indian texts, dan is not giving away an old shirt. It is not getting rid of something which in America they get rid of in a garage sale. They do garage sales. So, dan is not that. It is not charity. Dan is giving to somebody your most precious things. And dan has been considered in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad and all other behavior patterns in India as the most essential things that human beings should do. You see, this is very essential. They relate to each other through giving. So you give your good things, your precious things to others. So when a man gives his daughter to another young man for establishing a family, then that is giving something very beautiful, and that is giving something essential. That is Kanyadan. And that also shows that this marriage has taken place as an alliance between two families, and that it is a social acknowledgement of a relationship. Now, this whole version which the modern feminists have given, and even some BJP leaders have fallen into this trap of, making it modern. This should be set aside. You should understand, Dan. See, Shivi gave his whole body in Dan so that his spine could become the Vajra in order to fight. So Dan is giving your most precious self. It is not charity, it is not old shoes, old shirt. You understand? People should understand the text and the tradition.
Does India have any third gender rights?
This is something which was imposed upon us by the British. See, it is their own perverted Christian thinking which was brought into India. In ancient India, medieval India, till the British came, we always believe that God has created the third gender. We had a word for it. You see, the Westerners to this day don't have a traditional word. We have a Tritiya Prakritihi is our official textual word for the third gender. So in ancient India, in all the books, they had perfect rights. You could not persecute them. If you did, then you would be punished. And you can watch a whole article of mine on the net in which I have described this. It is a problem which was brought into our society by the British. It was not a problem of ancient India. So if we look upon how we behaved, then we behaved in a very different manner, and we can update our society according to the spirit which we followed. Right?
India is a land of Kamasura. Are we obsessed with sex?
Among the four aims of life, sex or kama is one of the most essential. Dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. So, kama means fulfillment of your desires, and fulfillment in a manner so that you don't cause harm to somebody else. Now, sexuality in India has been seen at various levels. There is the physical level of it, which is given in part of Kama Sutra. You see, Kama Sutra is not just about sexual postures. People who don't know the Kama Sutra talk about it that way. You can see my videos on Kama Sutra, and I have given what the whole text is about. And then there is the level of creating and treating art as part of eroticism. And finally, eroticism, other than the social relationship of marriage, etc., finally it becomes a method of reaching out to the divine. So there is a love at the bodily level, there is love at the social level. When you marry somebody in order to raise a family, then there is love or shringara at the artistic level, and then there is prema at the level of divine. So this is what is karma, and we should understand all this very well, right?
If God is everywhere, why do I need to visit a temple?
Can you become a surgeon by just reading a book on how to operate? Can you become a lawyer by just reading a legal book? You can't. You have to go to a school, you have to go to a college, you have to be taught as to how this particular science or art is to be practiced. Now, it's the same with the pursuit of divine or spiritual understanding. So you need a method to approach God. Now, going to the temple is one of the most beautiful methods evolved in Indian culture, because there you see that God has taken a shape which is human, which is like you. so you can understand him. He has taken an avatar. He has become like you so that you can talk to him intimately, so that you can get connected to him or her. If it is a Devi, then of course it is her. And you need to become attached so that you can understand the deeper meaning of the creation and the creator. And for that, visiting the temple is very necessary. Ancient temples were great repositories of learning. There was music, there was dance, there was scholarship, there was discussion, philosophy, and everything. It was not this kind of a modern temple where you just go and stay for a minute and run away. So we need to understand our science of science of temple going. Very.
Why can't a Shudra be a Pandit at temples? Does Brahmanical supremacy exist?
There were certain restrictions, and Shudra in ancient society or even in medieval society meant a person who has not taken any kind of formal education, but somebody who is a worker and who gets educated at home. So a son of fishermen gets the best education on how to, get fish and sell and all that. So these were professions and vocations. And people didn't go, Shudra only meant that you would not go into study of Shastras or study of philosophy or study of something. So that was the restriction, just as everybody cannot go to a business school, you have to prepare yourself. Now, earlier societies, some people could go, some people could not go. But then the question, what could a Shudra do or not? A Shudra in earlier society could not do it. Now, Indian society has evolved. We make a president of India out of a Shudra. We train our Shudras to become temple priests. So we have changed the conditions. It is not intrinsic to Hinduism that somebody who is born Shudra will not get higher education or will not be able to become a temple priest. So we should see this great reality. India has made a massive change. And all these.
I love all animals. Why is only cow considered sacred?
The cow has been made the fulcrum of Indian economy, and particularly the pre-industrial economy. Now, it is a matter of biological truth that cow can provide you milk like no other animal can. A lion or a camel cannot provide you milk the way a cow can, and it is very healthy. Then the bullocks, they were used in earlier economy. So I need not go into all the benefits, people know. Then the cow was considered to be an animal who you could associate with, be very close to, and it was considered to be the most beneficial, benign animal. It's like why do humans keep dogs? Why don't they keep some other animals? Because there is a relationship between the dog and the human being. You see, they gel together for a large number of things. Similarly, the cow and human society gels that way. Now, you are still using the cow. All these American and European and Australian societies are still exploiting using the cow, but they are using it for beef. So they can't come around and tell us that why are you so preoccupied with cows? Damn it, they are much more preoccupied with beef today than anybody else is. And we know what beef industry has done to environment. In India, if you look at it very rationally, very coolly, we did not cause any damage to the environment because we love the cows. But the whole of the West has screwed up environment because of their pursuit of beef and eating beef 3 times a day. Now that's something we should remember.
India was a land of princely states. Did Mughals or British unite us as a nation?
This whole question whether India was a nation before the British came, this is trying to enforce a concept of modern linguistic or a ethnographic nation which has come to us from Europe onto India. In India, a nation has been known as early as the Rig Veda. You see, we have been called, this is the land called Bharat, and we have been called the people of Bharat or Bharatam Janam. So, and it is said that the Vishwamitra Rishi protects the people of Bharat and Bharatam Janam, he protects them. And then innumerable texts of India, they talked about this land, which they consider as beautiful, as holy, as a cultural unity, and a land in which there is immense diversity, in which people have all kinds of philosophical beliefs. Some beliefs are common, some beliefs are uncommon, but people have diversity of color, race, languages. Natya Shastra describes the various languages that people speak. But there is a great, clear, 100% clear concept of India as a cultural unity, which is bound by sacred spaces. It is bound by the speech and the philosophy of great sages. It is bound together by art, by artisans, by poets and writers. Now, all this has existed, but we had different political systems. So there was monarchy, there were empires, there were great empires, you see, the Chalukya Empire, the Satavahana Empire, empire in the south, north, in Kashmir. So this political identity as a nation is not important to us. We can only believe, and we are, not a matter of belief, we are. We experience this cultural unity. And that is India, that is Bharat.